Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to Talking Knockouts. I'm, of course, your host, The Gub. Looking forward to discussing all things boxing with you. A big supercard coming up tomorrow. First and foremost, we need you to get active tonight, get your opinions in, use the live chat. Let us know what your thoughts and feelings are on the weekend's action that is coming up. If you're watching on catch up, FGA, comment for the algorithm. We'd love you to do that. And obviously, like, subscribe if you're brand new here. Talking Knockouts is a show we bring around when the boxing scene warrants it. And as always, I'm not alone. Do not fear for those perhaps thinking they're tuned into a Gov monologue. I am joined by the one, the only, the true boxing aficionado, Matthew Phillips. Welcome in, sir. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well.
You were fit. You were feeling poorly at one point, but you sound okay.
Stage me is very well. Real me.
yeah.
Falling apart.
Once the curtain goes up, Martin goes to showtime.
Yes. Although I have got things that make you feel really Christmassy, right? Retro throwbacks when you were a kid. I've got a cream soda.
Do you know what? I've never had that. Tastes good?
Do you not?
No, I've never
Always reminds me of Christmases as a kid. My dad used to absolutely love cream soda. And I never
sweet
have it
taste, presumably? Sweet taste?
Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I always think of Christmas, why don't I have it throughout the rest of the year? And then I guess January, I've been it off. Yeah. I guess January, I've been it off. And then Christmas comes around and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all on that cream soda thing.
Your New Year's resolutions then? More cream soda in 2024.
More cream soda in my life. I might be a happier bloke. I'd say what is making me happy, right? It is this boxing card. Now, talk to me, mate, because it's not often you get something as heavy as this comes about. So how has it all come around?
Yeah, well, we're back in Saudi again for the day of reckoning. Possibly the greatest card for a night of heavyweight boxing in the history of the sport. I'm trying to think of a better one, that's is stacked from top to bottom with names. And the beautiful thing about it is, of course, is it's just 20 quid to buy on TNT box office or DAZN, which is unbelievable when you consider you're paying nearly 30 wedge for Del Boy Fury 3.
Yes, exactly what I was going to say.
So I mean, this is value for money. So of course, we're back in Saudi. Reason being, Riyadh season. So it kicked off with Fury in his very pitiful performance against Big Francis Ngannou, the mixed martial artist world. It kicked off with that, and effectively, it's a few months worth of sports and entertainment festivals, they call it, in Saudi Arabia. Okay. The brainchild of Turki Al-Sheikh, who you all have heard if you've seen anything with Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn, they will refer to him as His Excellency. And the fact he's probably paying them massive amounts of millions, multiple millions, is why they're calling him His Excellency. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, when you think that, or when you think of all the ego involved with promoters and the broadcast deals they've got, and so-and-so can't find so-and-so, and all the fights that have fallen off the cliff in the world of boxing history. It's taken His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh to come along with a truckload of cash, speaking to all the premier promoters in the world, and said, let's put on a show together. And suddenly, Eddie Hearn is shaking hands with Frank Warren and various others. I counted about 11 or 12 different promotions are involved in this card.
Really?
Which is unbelievable. So I've got, it's such a huge card. I've had to make notes, everybody. Don't miss anything out. But I've counted at least Matchroom, probably number one, right? Queensberry, which is Frank Warren. So Matchroom obviously being Eddie Hearn. And you got Top Rank, the big Bob Arum in the States, who work very closely with Queensberry anyway. Even the Gypsy King's on there, with probably Joesph Parker, I would have thought. He's on there. Gold Star, Salita Promotions out of Brooklyn, Wasserman as well in the States. So they've really brought together. This is like a, you get this talk of Super League in football, don't you? This is basically like a Super League of promotions come together to make the fights. And of course, it's headlined by AJ versus Otto Wallin, and Deontay Wilder versus Joesph Parker. But look, a lot of people are going, why do they keep going to Saudi? Because they've got, the questionable human rights, women's rights, gay rights over there. Boxing's not bothered about this kind of stuff, unfortunately. I mean, we've touched on this before. If you look at two of the biggest fights in the world that have ever taken place, the Rumble in the Jungle was in Zaire. What did they have? Military dictatorship. It's because they wanted to promote Zaire to the world as being this great place. And then you go to Ali and Frazier free. The Thriller in Manila, Philippines. Ferdinand Marcos, again, a dictator, looking to showcase the Philippines as this great place to the world. And that's effectively what they're doing in Saudi here at the moment. And of course, with the Riyadh Festival, everyone's getting involved. It's just not standalone events. So you've already had WWE Crown Jewel there. That's already taken place. Obviously kicked off with Fury and Francis Ngannou, as we spoke earlier. And, they've got various other things. These huge car shows taking place. They've got a tennis tournament on starting Boxing Day, what would be in our calendar Boxing Day, with Djokovic and Alcaraz taking place in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you've got the Spanish, what they would call their Community Shield, La Liga winners versus Copa del Rey winners, Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid. That's going there in January. So as you can see, the old dollar machine is very busy, just throwing out all this cash to various different sports across very different industries and nations to come and celebrate this Riyadh season. And that's why we find ourselves here. But, as I said, boxing doesn't really think twice about going to these places, regardless of what you think of the political thing. And from a boxing point of view and an entertainment point of view, which is what Riyadh season is all about, well, Christmas has come early, mine 2 days early, because, this top to bottom, this is a great card.
Yeah, huge card. Obviously, 2 main event bouts top it, and we'll come to those shortly. But first of all, AJ, you mentioned him there. He didn't look overly impressed in his interview that's been doing the rounds. Where have you seen much of Saudi Arabia? Back and forth to the gym. Just a very sort of different AJ demeanor. Yeah,
he's been okay with some media, and he's been a bit off with others. I think maybe some media that's been what he would perceive as being a more pro Fury. He's been a little bit standoffish with, and a little bit ruder too. And his normal sort of, the AJ acolytes, the sort of the Matchroom supporters, he's been okay with. But I mean, look, we've touched on this before. Look, we were talking on WhatsApp earlier, weren't we? There was that picture of me with AJ back in the day when he would first fought at Wembley on the Foch Groves undercard, and he was very smiley, and he was at the start of his kind of like world title journey at that point. And I always think he's been quite a prickly character over the years. Remember, he had been in court for drug offences, so he'd come from a bit of a rough background in Watford. And I feel like when he signed with Matchroom, because he come back off the Olympics 2012 gold medal, they wanted him to come across as this kind of cleaner than clean character. But you can take the guy off the streets, but you can't take the streets out of the guy. And I think Fury said it best. I'm a bad man. I'm a gangster me trying to be a good man. That's effectively what they had. And now he's fed up of playing that role, and now he's just gone. He don't really care. He's achieved what he wanted to out of his career, and now he's kind of like, well, bollocks to it. I'm just going to be myself. I mean, a lot of people have said that Joshua is weird. I mean, Fury said it, Dylan White has said it, but he's probably
just a more focused Joshua. Isn't it just a more focused, professional?
I would say there's an element of that as well. But most certainly, when he was coming through, you wouldn't have seen him in that. He seemed more eager to please. He was more the Matchroom PR machine. And now it's kind of like shackles off. I mean, you'll remember when he lost to Usyk. Well, about Usyk, wasn't it? He picked up the mic and started like 3 cheers for Usyk and started talking about his own bloody journey. I mean, look, there's a bit of ego there as well. But he knows he's in a fight, though, against Otto Wallin. Not a household name, Otto Wallin. But he's at a crossroads here. I said to you earlier, I feel like it's high stakes for AJ. Where does he go after Usyk? Lost back to back. We said he's at the back of the queue really for title shots. He'd have to kind of, rely on a voluntary defense from someone like Fury to bring him back to the table. I mean, most certainly there's been talk of him maybe going down the IBF route to try and get one of the belts here. But this is a dangerous fight for him. Otto Wallin's a decent opponent. He's only ever lost to Tyson Fury. I would say that I thought he beat Tyson Fury. And the reason I would say that is he's a southpaw, unleashed an enormous gash above his eyebrow, Fury. Not with a head, proper legit cross. It required, rumour has it, 47, 50 stitches. I mean, bloody hell. You expect to get that in a motorway pile-up. But somehow, the top-ranked doctor ringside, knowing that the Wilder fights at stake, 2 and 3 were at stake, said, no, he's fine to continue. I think any other ring in the world, he should have been waved off. And Wallin, in theory, should have been the lineal heavyweight champion. So, pretty crazy, really. And WBC champion. I mean, he wouldn't have been WC at that point because Wilder still had the belt because it was off the back. But most certainly would have been lineal heavyweight champion. So, I mean, he could feel a little bit hard done by. Any other ring in the world, he would have won that fight. Fury certainly got away with. We got away with one against Francis Ngannou. He certainly got away with one against Otto Wallin. That's for certain.
Trevor says Joshua's not the same since the Ruiz defeat, which Andy Ruiz defeat, which is it's very true, right? He's not been the same boxer since.
No, he hasn't. No, I remember I've said on this show before. I remember him walking to the ring and going, "What's wrong with him?" He just looked strange, and he was like in the corner, and he didn't seem up for it. And I know he kept spitting his gum shield out. So he had his gum shield in his mouth, and then he'd like just protrude it out of his mouth, put it back in. I've never seen him do that before. I was like, is he nervous? I don't get it. I mean, we'll come to a key character of why that fight took place a little bit further down the card. We'll come to that in just a minute. But no, I agree. I don't think AJ has been the same. And, he was a bit lackluster in his comeback fight off the Usyk defeats against Jermaine Franklin, but probably wanted rounds. That said, he got 24 rounds against Usyk. I'm surprised he wanted another 12, but that's what he got against.
Well, this is it,
Jermaine Franklin. And he looked good against Helenius, to be fair. I mean, he was a little ploddy in places, but the actual knockout shot on Helenius, they just floored him.
He should have been all over Helenius. Like that should have been
certainly, because Helenius had obviously flown in as a last-minute replacement for Dillian White, who'd failed a drug test. Ironically, I think Helenius actually failed a test himself afterwards. He'd fought the week before. Really? Yeah. Oh. But certainly saw the Joshua of old with that knockout punch. I mean, but Helenius had been kind of a journeyman for a number of years, and then suddenly, with a couple of wins, he'd managed to get himself back in contention. But yeah, Joshua kind of finished him really, and that was good to see. If you're a Joshua fan, that was good to see because he looked gun shy in the two Usyk fights. That's for certain. And even in the Ruiz rematch, he looked gun shy. In actual fact, he's probably looked gun shy since the Ruiz defeat.
As Trevor says, not looks the same. Yeah. What's he going to do to beat Wallin, and what's Wallin going to do to beat AJ, in your opinion?
Well, Wallin is a Swede based out of the States. He fights southpaw. So look, Usyk is a southpaw who is elite level and above that. So he struggled a little bit with that southpaw stance. I mean, certainly for me, we keep saying this, don't we? We just want to see the Joshua knockout machine return, really, because that's where he made his name and had the most success. I mean, look, Wallin's not been in any company that AJ has, like, like a Povetkin, a Klitschko. I mean, some people would say that he's not been the same since the Klitschko fights, where, he nearly lost that himself. I think he went down in the fourth round. That was a heavy knockdown. I mean, some people say AJ hasn't got a very good chin, but I mean, against Ruiz, he didn't particularly, but bloody hell. Klitschko would have been surprised that Joshua got up in that fight and then came back and won it. So, yeah, I think Wallin is kind of like, he's quite a disciplined fighter, like I say. He's a
dangerous fighter.
He just does a number of things quite well. I think
it makes a dangerous fighter.
Well, certainly I would say he's a consistent fighter, which is why he gave Fury such a difficult night. And the fact that Fury had to contend with that cut that came from that straight left hand. So obviously, as a southpaw, you're leading with your right hand as a jab, and the left came over. I mean, to bust Fury open like that was just unbelievable. And as we keep saying, it should have been stopped. He should have been lineal. He should have been lineal champion. I think probably AJ is good enough to probably beat Wallin. But there's a lot of people think that Wallin can beat AJ. Is he going to knock AJ out? Don't know. I don't think many people thought Andy Ruiz would put him down 3 or 4 times or whatever it was, and eventually got waved off. So you never quite know with Joshua. And the fact that he's, gone from this sort of knockout artist to this little more sort of, I don't know. Like I say, it's almost like he just wants to show that he can box, if you see what I mean. That could be a danger against someone like Otto Wallin. I mean, Wallin's last outing was against Murat Gassiev, whose only defeat had come against Usyk down at Cruiserweight. So he'd stepped up at heavy. And Wallin, so a decent operator, albeit much smaller than Otto Wallin. And Wallin beat him by split decision. But, one of the reasons we've got Day of Reckoning and Deontay Wilder's on the card is because the rumor is, it's not been officially announced yet, maybe they'll do that tomorrow, is we're supposed to be getting AJ versus Deontay Wilder next year.
Yeah, I was going to ask that next.
Yeah, this is why we've got the two. So it's, you know, it's made the Otto Wallin's been picked for AJ to look good on the day of reckoning on this huge card in Saudi Arabia, to the world, to the States, to try and set this up. So you've got to think that they fancy their chances, and I think AJ probably will win. They've met as amateurs before 12 years ago over 3 rounds, and I think Joshua handled him quite easily. They made a lot of Joshua White as Dillian White as amateurs. I think they had a few fights.
They did.
They've certainly met before, and Joshua beat him. I think he probably beats him again. Might be points, maybe a late stoppage, but Fury struggled, albeit with one eye, against Otto Wallin. You know, it could happen again. He could cause some problems, and we'll just have to wait and see. But for the benefit of boxing and what we want to see in 2024, and we already know we're going to see Usyk and Fury in 2024. We really want to see AJ versus Wilder. So we just hope that AJ comes through, and I think he probably will. There's too much money on the table for AJ to lose. Certainly, if it goes to points, AJ is. You know, I always say to you, Canelo used to be that Canelo, you had to knock him out just to get a draw with a baseball bat to get a draw. Yeah. And I think we'll probably be in the same territory here with AJ. If he goes to points, he'll certainly get the decision. Wallin will have to win by knockout, I think.
Okay, all right. So AJ. Potentially Deontay Wilder on the horizon if he wins. Yeah. Where does Wallin go if he does win?
Well, I mean, look, Wallin's still a top 10 fighter. So only lose to, I think his stock will still be high, quite frankly. You know, the boxing industry know that he was unlucky not to beat Fury, although Fury would tell you there was nothing wrong with him. And if you lose to AJ, again, you know, 2-time champion, your stock's still high. Oh, if he got knocked out clean cold like Helenius, you know, then he might sort of struggle, but you know, certainly he could rebound against someone like, you know, if we ever see Dillian White back in the ring, someone of that nature, a Joesph, you know, one of the Brits coming through. Yeah, I think if he avoids a huge knockout disaster, Otto Wallin, he'll certainly be in the frame for big names. Okay. There'll be no shame in just having Fury and Joshua's defeats on your record. Certainly when you're 26-1 at the moment.
Well, absolutely not. No, that's the thing, and a big fight for both boxers for different reasons. Up next, we'll go to the other main event, and then we'll run through the card sort of as we close the show. We'll go through each bout. We've got Deontay Wilder, Joesph Parker. What are your thoughts on that one?
This is the most exciting fight of the evening, I think. I don't know what order they're going to come in. I don't know if AJ is actually going to be right at the very top of the card or it's going to be Wilder. I don't know, actually. If you look at some of the American previews, they've got Wilder as the top and AJ below. So I'm not sure what order it's going to come in. Certainly, I think the major fights like your Wilder Joshua is going to be around 8 to 9 o'clock because of the time difference. That's the beauty of being in Saudi Arabia. It's on our time zone almost. Yeah. So I mean that's pretty good. But yeah, so the return of Deontay Wilder. So he fought
a year out.
Yeah, a year out, and he's only had 177 seconds in that year since he lost to Fury the year before. So he's not even done 3 minutes in 2 years, effectively. And of course, he knocked out Helenius as well. And they were good friends, actually. I think Helenius was a big sparring partner of Wilder's, and then they happened to make the fight. And of course, he floors him with the trademark right cross. And I think he was quite worried for Helenius. Helenius had to have oxygen and stuff, and you know, I think Wilder felt quite bad because he viewed him as a friend. But it's quite interesting, really, because Wilder comes in at 43 wins with 42 knockouts, the 2 defeats to Tyson Fury, and of course the 1 draw against Tyson Fury, which I think most people would say was probably a Fury win. But I mean, Deontay has been great for boxing, albeit a little bit under the radar in the States. I mean, it's just as exciting as a prime Mike Tyson was with all the knockouts. Like I say, 42 from 43, unbelievable. And then the only one that he avenged, which had gone to the distance for a victory against Bermain Stavern when he won the WBC belt, I think he knocked Bermain Stavern out in 1 round anyway in the return. So he kind of avenged that. But, you know, he's just turned 38, Deontay. And I feel like he's a bit of a changed character. I thought he handled the Fury defeats and the draw really badly. But he came out with stupid. He came out with really stupid excuses, didn't he? You'll remember his ring equipment that he did on the ring walk. The armor was too heavy. The gloves were loaded. His drinks had been spiked. And I kind of lost a lot of respect for him because I thought he was very exciting. And, you know, should be mentioned in the same breath as as Mike Tyson, albeit maybe not against the same caliber of opposition. But the interviews I've seen of him this week and in the lead up, he's coming across as more of a jovial figure. It reminds me of like George Foreman, who was this, like we mentioned it earlier, Rumble in the Jungle, Ali Foreman. And he was like a really surly character, and everyone was scared shitless of him because of his knockout power, and he seemed to be unbelievable. And then, of course, he after that fight, he kind of became a born-again Christian and became the smiley guy that you now know for barbecue grills. So I mean, and Wilder, whilst not losing his edge to that degree, that Big George, who became a preacher, certainly is very jovial in the interviews and laughing. And I've lost Martin, but we will continue. But he's coming across as a very jovial character. I think it's fantastic to see. I've kind of got my love back for Deontay Wilder again, the Bronze Bomber, and
your self-proclaimed love here for Deontay Wilder and the gushing you're doing. It hasn't brought a tear to my eye for those that are watching. My eyes started to water, which is why I thought I'd just
it's got a little tissue out,
just in case those felt like I was really taking a mick out of. I've got really a lot of love for Deontay. I start to cry.
I'm so happy they found themselves again. This is going to be I think this will be a really good fight. And we've spoken about Joesph Parker on this show before when he got beaten by Joe Joyce, who of course has fallen off a cliff himself, losing to Zhang. With 2 defeats, but I think it's going to be an exciting fight. His ring rust is going to play a part in Deontay. Like I say, I mean,
it could well do, because
from October 21 when he gets sparked out by Tyson Fury to where we are December 23rd, December. Like I say, done less than 3 minutes. I mean, look, he's kind of used to that, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Deontay isn't there for to get to bore you to death with a points win. He wants knockouts. To deliver. He wants to deliver the knockouts, and that's exactly what people are going to be tuning in to see Joesph Parker knocked down. Historically, Parker's had a very good chin. I seem to recall Dillian Whyte put him down. I think that had been the first time he'd gone down, maybe the second, but a flash knockdown. I think it was the first time he'd been knocked down. And of course, Joyce actually did spark him out for the win. So you got to think if Joe Joyce can get through Joesph Parker, then probably Deontay can. I would liken it very much to the 2 fights that Wilder had with Ortiz. The Cuban, very plodding kind of fighter, but with decent hand speed and a tricky kind of customer. Probably going to outpoint Deontay if it went the full distance. And Deontay was losing both, but in both fights he managed to find the detonator. He's been referring to himself as Dr. Sleep in the interviews.
He's been very jovial, very relaxed, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think Dr. Sleep will put on his white jacket and. Find his instruments, and I think probably that's what will happen to Joesph Parker. But I do feel like it'll be exciting. I do feel like Parker's got the hand speed to hurt Wilder. It's whether or not he can take the shots coming back, and it doesn't take much to floor anybody. Deontay Wilder. I mean, look, it looked like Tyson in the third fight was schooling him, and suddenly, exactly. First and third, he looked like he was schooling him in both, and he was lucky to get out of both of those fights.
Absolutely.
To fight another round. So. Oh man, he just brings the power.
He really does, and the record speaks for itself. The record suggests that he does as well. So obviously you've gone AJ for the AJ Wallin fight. Where do you see this one going, and how can both boxers win it?
Well, like I say, I mean, look, I think this is lined up for Deontay to win as well. I mean, Joesph Parker's got experience in his corner. He's got Andy Lee in his corner, who was part of the Tyson Fury corner.
Not in the ring, though, is he?
No.
When those bombs are flying.
But there's yes, exactly. Look, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, is what Mike Tyson used to say. That's very true, Mike. Yeah, very true. But they would have been, with Sugar Hill, Stewart, and that kind of Kronk Gym organization that kind of oversees Tyson Fury's training, and they've had two fights in that stable with Fury against Wilder. They'll know probably what to do. But of course, Tyson Fury is a different beast to Joesph Parker. But certainly he's going to have to be nimble, get in there with his shots and avoid the ones coming back. Very, very difficult when you've got long levers like Deontay Wilder. Parker's going to be smaller than him. The reason Tyson Fury had success was he weighed so much heavier than Deontay. He's like a basketball player, really. He's got very skinny legs, skinny arms, but of course can generate the power to knock any man out. it could easily be finished in a round. Don't be surprised if this doesn't last 3 minutes. If he hits you on your chin, you're going to go. But I do feel like Parker can be durable, but I do feel like probably the end is nigh for Joesph in probably inside 6, I would have thought.
Okay, Trevor says Parker's very tough. I said the Wilder knockout not too early, I hope. Mark says if Parker boxes smart, he could catch Wilder. And the Crunchers in the room. Good evening, Cruncher. We'll stick in the heavyweight division. Dubois, Miller, Daniel Dubois.
Well, now we come
back in. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, now we come to one of the characters that resulted in Joshua losing his belts and wasn't even in the ring. Yeah, Dubois versus Miller.
Fire away.
Well, Daniel Dubois, when did we last see him? Against Alexander Usyk, of course, in Poland. Put on quite a good performance for a while. Now, arguably, depending on what your stance was, the referee deemed the shot that he landed on Usyk a low blow. A lot of people in the boxing industry said it was a legal blow and should have stood. And if it had stood, he'd be the undisputed heavyweight champion right now. There's no way Usyk was getting up on the count at 10 after that. But the referee deemed it. It's interesting. Boxing News also said the referee deemed it a low blow. But there's certainly a lot of people in the boxing industry felt that was a legal shot, and Dubois could have been champion. And there is the fine margins of sport, right, mine? Because the build up for this fight could have been very different. He'd have been undisputed champion and fighting somebody else. But here we are talking about whether or not Daniel Dubois has actually got the minerals to be not a quitter. He's had this label for a while, big question mark. So he quits against Joe Joyce in the lockdown era fights. Rightly so. I mean, he did break his orbital, and the doctor did say, Frank Warren revealed this week that the doctor said had he had a detached retina, could have got a detached retina if it continued, wouldn't have boxed again. So that had been his livelihood over. So the fact he took a knee and didn't get up was probably the correct decision. And then, of course, after he floors Usyk with the legal blow, illegal blow, should I say? The illegal blow. Yeah, you thought it was illegal? Yeah. Well, there you go. You're on that side of the fence. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Should be undisputed champion, right?
Yep. It should be. I thought it was perfectly fine.
Yeah. There you go. People are divided. Yeah. I personally thought it was legal as well, but there you go. But here we are talking about whether or not the bar's got the minerals. I mean, everyone thought he'd jump on Usyk after that. He didn't really. And it didn't take much for Usyk to actually stop him in the end. And again, it was the same kind of stance. The one takes a knee. He's got one glove on the floor, and it's all over. But nearly all of the boxing industry, whilst divided here over whether that was a legal blow or not, nearly all of the boxing industry will want him to beat Jarrell Miller, who the Fight Disciples called this week on their podcast. He's known as Big Baby because he's very flabby. They called him the Big Juicer because he's been done 3 times for drug tests. So
really?
Yeah. So the first time was when he actually started his career as a kickboxer. So he's a street fighter out of Brooklyn, basically. Okay, right. If you've watched any of the press conferences this week, he's been giving it all of this because he's somehow got to get himself back in the frame for a title shot because he's missed 2-3 years because of these drug bans. So the first one was when he was a kickboxer. He got done for some kind of weight loss hormone that he had there. And then it comes to the AJ fight, the week leading up at Madison Square Garden. Again, he's having a go at Joshua. He's calling him an English muffin. He's calling him all sorts of names. I'm going to do this and that to you. Very exciting fight, actually. I think it would have been. And gets done for I don't know if it was a steroid, but certainly an illegal substance. And then months later, 2019, that is, months later, gets done for the same thing. So a lot of people think he shouldn't be anywhere near a boxing ring, having had 1 in kickboxing and 2 illegal substance tests, in boxing. Somehow he's got himself on this card. I think he's with Salita Promotions, the New York promotions. I think. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. I think that's how he's got involved here. But he's looking to beat Daniel Dubois and get himself into the frame of title shots. And what better place to do it here? But I think all of boxing wants to see Daniel Dubois win. But again, a lot of people. Yeah, absolutely. Because Dubois arrives as this knockout artist. I mean, what's his record here? Let me have a little look. 19-2, and I think 18 of those are by knockout. But I mean, look, again, you think back to, we mentioned it earlier. We spoke about Fury versus Chisora at Spurs. On the undercard of that fight was Dubois, in which he fought Kevin Lerena out of South Africa. Mm-hmm. He was down 3 times, Dubois, in the first round. thought bloody hell's going to get stopped in one here. As it transpired, apparently it hurt his knee, but he still bounced back and won in 3 rounds. So, I mean, look, with people, maybe that is harsh just to keep saying that he quits in the big fights, because it would have been very easy just to say, I've done my knee in and I can't carry on here.
No.
So he did come back in that one. But I think all the boxing wants to see Daniel Dubois win. But, you know, Jarrell Miller is just, like I say, he's known as the big baby. He's basically like a big pie man. You can see why Andy Ruiz replaced him for that Joshua fight. They're both of similar builds. I think Ruiz is probably bigger around the girth than Jarrell Miller is, but there's not much in it. And he's not particularly mobile. He can take a punch. He is 26-0, I think he is. With one no contest.
Head of the record.
It's a good record, yeah. Like I say, but I mean, his boxing form has been patchy because of the drug bans. He knocked out Lucas Brown, sort of someone who's always been on the periphery of, title fights in one of his fights. It's whether or not if Dubois connects with him, Dubois should knock him out. It's whether or not Miller can take the shots. But then if he keeps wearing him down, because he'll come forward like Frankenstein, Miller, just throwing shots. I mean, there's not much technique there, like I said earlier. And as the Fight Disciple said, he's basically just a street fighter. So if he could take Dubois shots, he'll probably wear Dubois down. And then again, of course, everyone will think, does Dubois really want this if he goes into the later rounds? But a fight certainly worth watching. Whether or not it'd be a show stealer, I don't know, but certainly be worth watching. Could be fireworks, who knows? Dubois might go down 3 times in the first round again and bounce back. But hard one to call that. But I would like to see Dubois win just because of Jarrell Miller's kind of very patchy.
Okay. Mark Wall, Miller is massively overrated and slow.
Really
Dubois should win, but lacks fighting heart. Quits far too easy. Trevor says Miller is made for Dubois. He is too big and slow. Dubois by a knockout.
I hope so. Look, but Miller does bring the smack talk, and you've seen it this week.
Love that.
But yeah, it's the kind of thing you would like. Like I said, he called it Joshua an English muffin back in 2019. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How his actions resulted in a change of opponent for Joshua and Andy Ruiz. And then the course of Joshua's life changes because he loses the belt in one of the big shocks. So there you go. Even when Jarrell Miller is not fighting Joshua, he still had an influence on his career. I'm pretty certain that Joshua would like to fight Jarrell Miller just to shut his face up. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, that fight could go either way. But hard one to call. Hopefully Dubois will do it, but we will see.
It's a big card. So we'll sort of slice it down the middle now and say, right, any other heavyweight bouts before we come to the non-heavyweight bouts?
Yep, we have. So we've got another 3 heavyweight bouts on there. Wow. So we mentioned the IBF title earlier. Mm-hmm. Filip Hrgovic, who you would have seen on British TV quite a lot. Croatian, undefeated, good fighter, number 1 contender for IBF. Could end up fighting Joshua at some point. We'll have to wait and see. He's fighting I think he's Australian, called Mark de Mori. And when I saw that name come up when this card was announced, I was thinking to myself, de Mori must be related to that guy, this YouTube guy who learned to box on YouTube and ended up fighting David Hay and got sparked in one. Must be related to him. Cousin, brother. Turns out it's the same bloody bloke. I couldn't believe it. It's the same guy. He's now 41-2 is his record. I was flabbergasted. He's in his 40s. But yeah, he came in on this back. I think it was when Hay had lost to Klitschko. You remember he'd broken his toe and his credibility was all over. And so he started doing these kind of comeback fights. And one was against Mark de Mori. I think he was on Dave. Do you remember the channel Dave?
Well, yeah, it was. Yeah. It was on Dave. It was.
Yeah. And the big story was that this was like the original YouTube box. Well, now YouTube boxing. Huge. But, 7 years ago.
He's the original Jake Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was useless. I mean, he got sparked out in must have been 2 minutes in the first round. I couldn't believe this was the same fella. What he's doing in the ring with Filip Hrgovic, my God. I mean, if he gets out, if he goes beyond a round with Filip Hrgovic, I take that as a moral victory. I hope he doesn't get seriously hurt. Very odd.
He could shock you and win.
Not a chance. It's not a chance. I would label this as Manchester City versus Stowmarket Town, Martin. I mean, this is how I'm labeling this one. But who knows? But I hope nothing serious happens to Mark de Mori. I'm amazed he's still fighting. I'm amazed he's at 41-2, although I looked at his record and he's fighting people with 20 wins and 90 losses. So this one is kind of like the fly in the ointment a little bit. Probably de Mori shouldn't really be anywhere near Filip Hrgovic. Hrgovic beat Zhilai Zhang, who has since gone on to beat Joe Joyce twice. and is now kind of interim IBF champion, I think, or WBO champion. So he's beaten him. So he's right on the periphery of a title shot, and what he's doing in against Mark de Moray, I don't know. So expect this to go around, less than 3 minutes. That one.
All right. We've also got a European heavyweight clash on.
Yes. Now.
On the card.
Yes. So now two names might not be not particularly household names, and two names that are quite difficult to pronounce. But you've got the Russian Makhmudov. He is a guy that is coming through, and he's fighting Ajit Kabayel, who's the European champion out of Germany. You would have seen him on Sky. If you're a boxing fan, you'd have seen Kabayel on Sky. He fought Dubois Zorro in, when sometimes they fight in Monaco in that kind of ballroom in the casino. He fought him there. He'd won the fight before that. He'd won the European heavyweight title, and it was all set up for Dubois to win the title back on Sky. He'd held it previously, and he could get on with his career. And of course, Dubois, being Dubois, just turned up, did one of his usual performances, lackluster. And Ajit Kabayel wins the fight. And that's why it goes that way. And Kabayel
the party.
Yeah. So Kabayel is still undefeated. I'm not sure what his record is, but I would say something in the region of 20, 21, 22-0. And Makhmudov is 18-0. I think 17 knockouts he's got. Heavy-handed, 6'5", known as the Lion. So Makhmudov could be someone, even though you don't know who he is at the moment, could well be a contender this time in a year, 12 months. His last fight lasted 70 seconds. Absolute animal. So someone's going to go. So that's well worth watching, that fight, I would say. Well worth watching. And you've muted yourself.
Sorry, we've got one more heavyweight clash on the card. Very quick run through that, and then we've got two non-heavyweight titles.
So you've got Frank Sanchez, Cuban heavyweight. He's 23-0. He's been kind of viewed as maybe the next breed that comes through after Deontay Wilder. He's fighting another. We mentioned one New Zealander earlier in Joesph Parker, and he's fighting Junior Fa. And Fa was a good, Junior Fa. He was a good amateur. He's flattered to deceive a little bit on the professional ranks.
Translated over, really, is it?
No, he's lost to Joesph Parker, and he lost to Lucas Brown, who lost to Jarrell Miller. But again, that should be an entertaining fight. Certainly, I think that would certainly be one that's worth watching.
That's the opener.
They might put Filip Hrgovic on as the opener. I don't know, but maybe Frank Sanchez. We'll wait and see. But I mean, I think whenever they put Filip Hrgovic on, it's going to be, in the time you go from maybe the TV to put the kettle on, also open another beer, the fight could well be over. Hrgovic would have been won by knockout. But certainly, I think all those fights we've mentioned so far, all worth watching, other than probably Hrgovic de Moray. I don't know what that's doing on the card, but there we go. Never mind.
He might surprise you. You've got a puncher's chance in the ring.
You're intrigued by this now, aren't you? Now I've called it Man City versus Stowmarket.
I just think that boxing, he might be well and truly outclassed, and we wish him. Obviously, we hope that no ill will comes to him at all. But when you're in the boxing ring with a pair of boxing gloves, you've got a puncher's chance. That's the thing. One punch changes careers, changes trajectories. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I can't say it's,
I just hope he gets through okay. That's all I'm going to say.
Ben says talking boxing is a lot better than talking cricket. Big up, Ben.
Hey, the country will be fuming. He'll be
at home pacing now. He'll be pacing.
Talking cricket is a cool show, man. I enjoy watching that.
Don't lie. We all know you don't watch it.
I do watch that. It's very good. Ian, very good. And the other guys, excellent.
Ian's ace. Yeah, Ian's ace. More Ian, less Cruncher. That's what I get up through the emails.
I remember when Rich sent me a video of Ian, and I didn't know. I'd only heard of him, and I'd never seen him on video. I thought he was a BBC correspondent at first. I thought he was that good.
There you go. No,
that's how good I thought he was. I was like,
I remember you saying it. Right, we're at 40 minutes of a half an hour show. We'll do 5 more minutes. All right. So you've got 2.5 minutes each on the next two bouts, which is a WBA light heavyweight title and an IBF cruiserweight title. Break it down.
Yes. So if there's one fight probably that, you need to go and maybe make some dinner or get something to eat, I'd probably go on the light heavy one, which is Dimitri Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. So Dimitri Bivol, well known on this channel, we discussed he beat Canelo moving up from super middle to light heavy to try and wrestle the WBA belt away from Dimitri Bivol. And, Bivol was just too good. Normally when fights go to points with Canelo involved, he'll win all day, but there was no argument that Bivol had beaten Canelo. And that performance had got him Fighter of the Year 2022. And here we are at 2023, still not fought until tomorrow evening. And he's only really having a run out against Lyndon Arthur. Again, we're talking about, Hrgovic, Mori being Man City versus Stowmarket. I mean, I would probably label this one as more Manchester City versus Portsmouth. They're doing pretty well at a certain level. Lyndon Arthur's decent around kind of domestic European level. He's only defeating about 23 fights is against Anthony Yard, who he'd already beaten previously. So he's kind of proved himself. Whether or not he's worthy of a title shot, probably not. I think the title shot that came for this, again, just to showcase Bivol on this Saudi Arabian stage, probably came as a surprise to Lyndon Arthur. And this is just a run out. This is like, if this was football, this is pre-season for Bivol. Yep. He needs rounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not knocked out anyone in about 5 years. So this will almost certainly go to points. Again, Lyndon Arthur's probably got a puncher's chance, but this will be Bivol all day. And the carrot at the end of the stick is in January, the unified champion Artur Beterbiev out of Russia, Russian-Canadian, fights England's very own Callum Smith from the Smith family stable. Oh. The winner of that will fight Bivol, and it's probably going to be Bivol versus Beterbiev, in which is a huge, huge fight. Beterbiev is 18-0, 18 knockouts. So you'll go against someone who's a technician in Bivol versus the knockout artist. And if you remember to the top of the year, Beterbiev beat Anthony Yard in January this year by in an 8th round knockout. Absolute beast. Think of Golovkin, but a light heavyweight. Yep. That's basically what Beterbiev is. So if we get Bivol versus Beterbiev probably next summer, bring it on. So that's that one, light heavy. Like I say, I expect that to go 12 rounds. One you can keep your eye on. I don't think Lyndon Arthur's going to trouble him particularly. And then a very exciting fight to finish with.
Zorro.
Yeah. Well, Ellis Zorro. Okay. So this is a guy who's just been on the domestic scene. Again, he's jumping up huge levels here. He's fighting Jai Opetaia, who's Australian. He is, up until yesterday, was the IBF Cruiserweight champion. Still the Ring Magazine. As we've said before, if you watch Talking Knockouts, if you're Ring Magazine champion, you're recognised by Talking Knockouts as the #1 champion. And Opetaia held that until the IBF decided they didn't want him to fight Ellis Zorro, wanted him to come off the card, wanted him to go and fight Maris Bradis, who he'd beaten for the title in the first place. And Opetaia, who's a very likable guy, he's a really cool customer. He said, "Oh no, bollocks to that. I want to fight in Saudi Arabia against Ellis Zorro." So he's put the belt in the bin. He said, "I'm still #1 anyway. I'm the Ring Magazine champion. Everyone knows I'm the daddy." So he's going ahead with this fight. He last fought in England back in September at Wembley Arena against a very similar opponent to Ellis Zorro, domestic cruiser called Jordan Thompson. Handled him easy, beat him in 4 rounds. Probably the same is going to happen here. Probably Ellis Zorro's biggest win to date is against Tyson Fury's cousin, Jose Burton. Beat him, stopped him, but this is a huge jump up in class. Opetaia is really good. He has already said he will follow Usyk and try and become undisputed at cruiserweight and then move up to the heavyweight rankings. I think he's slightly smaller than Usyk. I think he might be 6'2", 6'3". I mean, Usyk looks quite small against Tyson Fury, but of course 6'3", he's nothing to shake your head at. But Opetaia will probably look to pick up the belts at cruiser and then move up to heavy. So I'm sure Usyk is his inspiration for doing that. But he's a really good customer, good guy, and yeah, I would say he'll beat Zorro in probably 6 rounds.
Okay, perfect. There we go. We have run through the super card. Mark Wall says your boxing knowledge is really impressive, Matt. It certainly is. It certainly is. And Matt is talking town. Steve Bunce is Trevor Amos.
He's a big guy as well. I've met Steve. He's a big fellow too. He's a great journalist as well. Steve Bunce. But yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, look, we can't tell. By the way, we can't tell how excited you are. You're literally like my 3-year-old with Christmas coming up. Yeah, I really am excited.
All over the place.
As soon as this was announced, I said, there's some pay-per-views I would listen to on the radio because I'm not paying 30 quid for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Hellboy and Fury being one. But this, as soon as it was announced, I bought it on DAZN actually. I wish I bought it on TNT because I could have watched it from the telly. So I'd have to stream it. But $19.99 for this card is a steal, quite frankly. I mean, I thought it was going to be like 50 quid or something, but it come in at under 20 quid. And I feel like the more people that buy it, the more that the Saudis, putting political differences aside, will stump up more cash for these kind of events. And boxing needs these events because everyone was saying, Fury's been hopeless this year. He's only fought in Ghana. He was crap in that. We had back and forth with Joshua. We've had back and forth with Usyk. So heavyweight boxing needs this as the kind of like the kicker in the arm to to get the scene going. And of course, once we get to February, we'll have the Fury Usyk undisputed. So exciting times.
Agreed. Absolutely. Perfect. There we go. Talking knockouts in the book. Enjoy the wonderful night of boxing that's coming up. That has been the media mogul, Matthew Phillips, Steve Bunce, as he might be called from now on in. Hit the like, subscribe, and we'll catch you all next time. But thanks for watching, right, Matt?
All the best. See you soon.
See you soon.